Okay, so what did Vi actually know during the first season of Arcane? We follow her throughout the first season, but have you ever wondered what she really knew about what was happening in the outside? I mean, she was in jail for 5 to 7 years. So, with this video, we'll try to examine what she knew and what she didn't know, and also we'll try to look at the events of Arcane through her eyes. Vi's story begins with her holding Powder's hand as they go through the remnants of a rebellion led by Vander against the city of Piltover. They're trying to look for their parents, but all they can find is Vander destroying an enforcer. Once he sees them, he just points to the bodies of their parents on the ground and the two break down crying. Vander carries them off and Vi glares at Piltover, holding them responsible for what they lost. Fast forward a few years, Vi and Powder are jumping across Piltover roofs along with their foster siblings, Clagor and Milo. Vi is the best, while Powder is the worst. They're on their way to rob a place someone they call Little Man suggested, and all in all, the others are a bit worried, and by the looks of it, so is Vi. However, they do convince themselves that it's justified and they continue. Once they reach the apartment, they break in clumsily and begin looking for things with value that they can sell. The house's owner comes back and they escape in a panic. In the ensuing chaos, Vi finds Powder in a separate room and drags her out. To complicate matters, as they escape, a huge explosion rocks the building as she pulls in Powder. Shocked and confused, the gang is spotted by enforcers and they make a break for it, going back to their home in the Undercity. As they lose the enforcers chasing them by going through a sewer, Milo starts blaming Powder for the explosion. Powder denies this and Vi immediately takes her side. The other two let it go because of Vi, but they're still upset at Powder. Okay, so at this point, Vi didn't really know if it was Powder or not who was responsible for that explosion. However, due to past experiences, it seems that Clagor and Milo seem to think so. I guess you can say that it was justified that Vi defended Powder, but still it also shows that no matter what, Vi will always protect Powder. As they enter the Undercity, they're cornered by a group of guys demanding the goods that they stole. Vi throws the bag to Powder and tells her to make a run for it. Vi, Clagor, and Milo beat up the other gang despite being outnumbered, but it's mostly thanks to Vi. As the fight ends, the leader of the other group pulls out a knife, but Vi intimidates him into running. Powder comes back after the fight, but they see that she lost the goods. Still upset with her, Milo gets even madder at her, and Vi once again steps in and orders the others to back down. With Vi being the leader, they once again back down. Okay, so here we see that no matter what, Vi will always protect Powder, even if she's the one in the wrong. And since she's the leader of the group will always follow her. However, I do think that it's important for Powder to accept some responsibility. I mean, we can see in the future that a lot of what happened during her childhood really carried over to her adulthood and really affected her. They make their way back to the last drop bar, where they try to avoid being caught by Vander, but they can't catch a break. Vander already knows what happened, and he barges in on a debriefing session by the gang. He gets mad at them all, but Vi answers back at him, not really understanding the gravity of the situation. Vander asks the group to leave so that he can talk to Vi alone, and once they're alone, he lectures Vi on the responsibilities of being a leader. When people look up to you, he says, you don't get to be selfish. Whatever happens, it's on you. And with this, Vi calms down. After Vander talks some sense into Vi, he immediately gets some trinkets to make it look like the stolen loot to pawn it off in place of the ones that were stolen. He goes to his informant, bringing Clagor with him. With Vander gone, Milo again makes his case to Vi about leaving Powder on jobs like that. It really seems reasonable, barring the way Milo says it. However, Vi still defends Powder, and she then goes to talk to her. She finds Powder huddled up and on the verge of crying. She overheard the part of their conversation and thought that Vi agreed with Milo. She denies this, and she brings Powder to the top of the bar. There, their roof deck has this awesome view of Piltover as well as the Undercity. She points out all the places where the gang made an embarrassing mistake, and she also tells her that they were able to get through those times because they stuck together. This relieves Powder, who then shows her a stash of hex gems that she was able to save from the loot that she lost. She asks if they should go to Vander, but Vi tells her no, trying not to incriminate anyone anymore. While laying low for the next few days, the gang finds themselves hanging out in an abandoned arcade that they frequent. Think of it like a clubhouse with old arcade games. There, Powder shows off her technical and shooting prowess, while Vi demolishes a punching bag game. In a sudden turn of events, a random guy is sent flying into the arcade by a bunch of enforcers. The enforcers spot the gang, and they go to investigate them as they match the description of the people that they're looking for. As Vi spots Powder still holding on to the hex gems, she yells for them to run away, and eventually they're saved by Little Man, aka Echo. They get back to the last drop just in time to see Vander getting confronted by a woman named Sevika. Sevika wants them to start another rebellion, but Vander won't have it. Angry, Sevika and a bunch of scary looking guys walk out. Vi tells the gang that she actually agrees with Sevika and that they should fight. However, she does notice Echo awkwardly avoiding her gaze. With a little prodding, Vi discovers that Vander made a deal with the enforcers to keep the status quo and avoid violence. Okay, so at this point, Vi already knows how dangerous the Hextech gemstones are. I mean, why would you bring it if you're already on the run? If they catch you with it, you already have the evidence right there with you. Vi knows this, that's why she ordered for a retreat. However, even though Powder was clearly in the wrong, she takes out her anger on Vander instead. So the gang continues to lie low, but when Marcus, an enforcer, comes barging into the bar, they almost get caught. If not for the timely alarm of Vander, the kids were able to hide from Marcus. Powder, however, almost gets discovered, which leads Vi to get angry at Vander again. Once again, they get into an argument after Marcus leaves. And again, Vander talks to her alone. She tells him that she grew up knowing that she's less than them and that her place was down there. Vander then answers her that they could fight, but it will have sacrifices. He then asks if she was ready to sacrifice anyone close to her and tells her that nobody wins in war. This calms Vi down again, but she asks what Vander will do next. Vander answers that he doesn't know. In response to this, Vi decides to turn herself in. Okay, so this moment right here is what Vi really needs. Finally, we can see that everything clicks and she can understand why Vander is the way that he is. This kind of character growth usually goes rewarded in other series, but since this is Arcane, you shouldn't really be surprised with what happens next. She gives Powder a stuffed rabbit that she had as a child, effectively saying goodbye, and goes to Benzo's to turn herself into the enforcer whom Vander made a deal with. Powder senses this and goes to Vander, showing him the rabbit. Vander immediately picks up what Vi wants to do, and he rushes over to Benzo's place to take her place by locking her up in Benzo's basement instead. Grayson, the enforcer Vander had a deal with, asks if he's sure about what he's doing. He says yes, and Vi is forced to watch from the basement window as they take him away. Out of nowhere, a monster kills Benzo and Grayson, and it apparently works for Silco. The monster follows his orders and kidnaps Vander as Vi helplessly watches. Okay, so now do you see my point about bad things happening whenever something good happens? Vi experiences some character growth, and instead of it helping them, it either gets Vander imprisoned or it gets him either kidnapped and or killed. So, of course, the worst case scenario had to happen since this is Arcane. But now, it's either life or death with Vander. So, it's always the worst case. They leave her there, and a few hours later, an Echo who is on the verge of tears unlocks the basement. He tells her that he followed them to their base in the old cannery, and Vi hugs him briefly and goes back to the last drop to prepare to rescue Vander. There, Milo and Clagger quickly pick up the situation and volunteer to follow. Powder wants to come as well, but is quickly denied. They arrive at the cannery seemingly deserted. They see Vander strapped to a chair in a room on the second floor, and they run to him through a thin metal bridge, but are then trapped by Silco, Sevika, and the other scary guys. It's Vi, Clagor, Milo, and Vander on one side, and on the other side is Silco and his goons. Vi orders Milo and Clagor to get Vander out, and she dons Vander's gauntlets that she retrieved from the last drop. Using the thin metal bridge as a bottleneck, she quickly dispatches the thugs one by one. Silco finally sends out Deckard, who once again mutates into the monster, and Vi is immediately outmatched and retreats to the room where Vander and the others are, closing it shut. Okay, so I just wanted to point out that they wanted to show here that Vi isn't all about brawling or just hitting stuff. She also has brains, and by using the bottleneck, she proves that. It's a great way to round out her character and to add some character depth. They regroup, and through Vander's encouragement, Milo and Clagger get him him free and find an exit. An explosion destroys their efforts though, and in its aftermath, Clagor and Milo are left dead. Vi is unable to move, and upon seeing this, Vander goes out to meet the Shimmer mutant Deckard and shakes off the rust to almost edge out the win. That is until Silco stabs him in the back, quite literally. Again, I want to point out that it's always a worst case scenario. People keep complaining about the plot armor characters who our champions have, but really, some of these are worse than dying. Vander falls to a crate of Shimmer and Vi is left at the mercy of the mutated Deckard. Right as Deckard tries to hit her, a mutated Vander steps in and incapacitates the mutant. They hear another explosion as the fire hits the Shimmer, and Vander carries Vi away, shielding her from the fire and goes through a wall. Vander and Vi fall, but even then, Vander protects her from the impact. Vander seemingly dies after this, leaving Vi broken and crying beside him. Just after Vander takes his final breath, Powder comes running, proud, telling Vi that her bomb finally worked. A shell-shocked Vi then yells at her and slaps her, and after realizing what she had done, Vi runs away to cool off. First off, I feel that I have to clear this up because even I thought that Vi abandoned Powder during this point. However, the writers did make it clear that she was just cooling off, which they explained during their AMA and Reddit quite some time ago. She looks back and she sees Silco hugging her sister. She tries to run back, but falls unconscious thanks to Marcus's attempt at saving her. And this is an attempt using chloroform and sending her to jail. She is then taken to Stillwater Prison, and according to the warden's files, she was very violent at first. She made it a point to beat up all the Undercity criminals working for Silco, and there she also endured being beaten up by the guards, but she was unyielding. She would continue to destroy Undercity criminals whenever she got the chance, and she even tattooed herself, and if that's true, what an artist she is. I mean, I can't even draw with the paper right in front of me, but again, they're adding dimension to her character by making her a bit more artistic. After 5 to 7 years of this, an enforcer by the name of Caitlyn comes to talk to her about the mastermind running the Undercity. No doubt experiencing the corrupted enforcer's characters firsthand, she is very untrusting and doubtful at first. It's only when she sees Powder's drawing in Caitlyn's files that she opens up to her and tells her about the Undercity. Now, everything that happened during that 5 to 7 years of imprisonment in Stillwater Prison all came from the game itself, which was coming from an event, I think. It's all in the internet and it's all very clear right there, but I'll give you a link down below so you know where to find it. In their conversation, she brings up Silco and Caitlyn wants to delve in deeper. Vi gets her to set her free by offering to be her guide in the Undercity. Once she's out, she takes Caitlyn to the outskirts of the city, and instead of taking a gondola to the Undercity, she just jumps over the edge, forcing Caitlyn to run after her as she does parkour. Naturally, Vi arrives at the Undercity proper before Caitlyn does, and she's approached by a couple of muggers, but she turns the table around and mugs them instead. She steals their clothes and passes one outfit to Caitlyn so that they can blend in. Okay, so everything in the scene is just to show that Vi never lost her edge, even though she was imprisoned for 5 to 7 years. In fact, I think it even made her stronger because of the nature of her stay. After this, they stop by a food cart and Vi grabs a snack. When asked by Caitlyn what they were doing there, it turns out that the proprietor of the cart is actually an informant. He leaves a message for Vi, and from there, they go to a brothel where the owner of the brothel is a loyalist of Vander. She briefs Vi on what happened to the Undercity, but she doesn't tell her what happened to Powder. She does give Savika's location though. Vi shakes off Caitlyn at the brothel and goes to settle the score with Savika. Once she finds Savika, she beats her up to a pulp and asks for Powder. Savika reveals that Powder is now working for Silco, which catches Vi off guard. With this, she stabs her with a knife that pops out from her mechanical arm, and right before she's about to finish Vi, Caitlyn arrives and shoots Savika's arm out. Savika runs, and Caitlyn goes to help the wounded Vi, and it's here that Vi decides that Cupcake is a fitting pet name for her because she's so sweet. Okay, so I really think Caitlyn should have just shot her in the head instead of her arm. I mean, because of this, Savika got away and she was able to alert Silco's goons, so now Silco knows that Vi is alive and that she's coming for Powder. They run towards a water tower and climb down to an area filled with abandoned buildings, and there they find that Shimmer junkies have also made the place their home. Vi leads them to a certain building, and there they rest. It's revealed to be Vi and Powder's childhood home, and there, Vi passes out due to her wounds. She comes to thanks to a Shimmer potion that Caitlyn procured, but their rest is cut short because Silco calls out from outside. There, they see Hawk, a friend of Vander's from before, obviously having sold them out. Okay, so Vi never knew that it was Hawk that helped her. So now the writers have a situation where they can show how conflicted and desperate the people of the Undercity really are because of Shimmer. Vi punches a water tower they climb down from, making the water tower fall. They use that as a distraction to get away, and as they run, purple smoke rising from the distance catches Vi's eye. It's the flare that she gave Powder, and it's the very one that she'd promised that she'd come to her as long as she used it. At the highest point of the Undercity, Vi finds Powder and the two sisters reunite. Both were elated, but it was cut short when Jinx finds that Vi is with an enforcer. She thinks that Vi sold her out, and before Vi can clear things up, a group of hoverboarders called the Firelights attack them. Caitlyn was able to retrieve the Hextech gemstone from Jinx, but the Firelights were also successful at kidnapping them. Okay, so like I've said in my Arcane Explained video, I really don't get why the Firelights had to swoop in like that and take them away when they could have just talked it out. I mean, 10 more seconds of that with Jinx on the fence, I don't know, maybe they could have saved a lot of heartache. Vi and Caitlyn now have their hands bound and their heads bagged. They're thrown inside an empty room, and there they keep arguing about whose fault it was that they were taken. Their arguing only ends when some people come to collect Vi. Caitlyn is left in the room, calling out for Vi as she's taken away. The people take off the bag from Vi's head, and she ultimately sees that the leader of the group that kidnapped them, or the Firelights, is Echo. They argue at first, and Echo is mad and questions her about what her motives are and what the Hextech gemstones are. When Vi sees that Echo is still one of the good guys, she reveals that she could have gotten out at any time and shows him the cuffs that were used to bind her. Before Echo could get madder, she just pulls Echo into a hug and they cry it out. Echo then gives Vi a tour of the Firelights base, and Vi is awestruck that they were able to grow a tree in the middle of the Undercity. Echo just deflects it, and he credits all that have helped him, them being all that were displaced when Vander died. Vi asks about Jinx, and Echo just tells her that she's a lost cause. Vi denies this, but then Echo shows her a mural where all that have fallen are painted on. In that mural, Powder is already included. This only means that Echo has already accepted that Powder is no more. After this, Vi convinces Echo that Caitlyn can be trusted, so they free her. Echo and Caitlyn don't get along very well, but Vi mediates a conversation. Caitlyn explains that she was looking for the gemstone that Echo now has, and that it was stolen by Jinx. She tells them that they can go to Jace, a council member in Piltover, and tell him what happened and try and fix things. Echo agrees, under the condition that he's the one who will give it to Jace. Okay, so at this point right here, we find out that Vi knows absolutely nothing at all about why they're actually there. She doesn't know that Jinx stole the Hextech gemstones, she doesn't know about Hextech gemstones, and she probably doesn't know about Hextech technology in the first place. I mean, it's quite understandable. She was in prison for 5 to 7 years, and most of that was spent in isolation. So yeah, it's a really good detail added by the writers, and I think it reinforces the message that she will do anything to protect Powder. It's been like that since the first episode, and now they carried it over to Act 2 and Act 3. With all that sorted out, they make their way to the bridge at night. Looks to be safe and sound, but it was not. Caitlyn looks around and sees a bunch of firelights flying around, and Vi explains to her what they are. As they near the middle of the bridge, Vi stops and tells them that she needs to go back for Jinx. She hugs them all goodbye and goes back to the Undercity. A few moments later, Vi hears a gunshot and she immediately comes running back for Echo and Caitlyn. Before she could make it to Caitlyn, who had a gun aimed at her by Marcus, the firelights they saw swarmed the area and exploded. The explosion kills Marcus, and Jinx walks towards them to collect the gemstone. As Jinx gets closer, she sees that Vi is with Caitlyn again, and she goes into one of her meltdowns. She aims her Gatling gun at the two, but before she can shoot, a very alive Echo comes between them using his hoverboard, and he yells for them to leave without him. Vi acquiesces because of the injured Caitlyn. After hearing another explosion, Vi finds shelter for the injured Caitlyn nearby and tries to come back for Echo and Jinx. However, before she could reach them, Silco and his goons arrive. Vi sees that Silco has gotten Jinx and that the enforcers are starting to arrive. Without any other options, she retreats with Caitlyn. Okay, so at this point, Vi already knew what the ramifications were for not delivering the Hextech gemstones. Even still, she chose Powder over the Hextech gemstones. And I think this is a great move on the writer's part because it's always been established that Powder is her world. It's been so since Act 1 and it's going to be so until Act 3. On Echo's part, I think it's more about letting go of the past and of the Powder that he once knew. I think it's more about embracing the present and doing what has to be done. For Marcus's part, I don't know. I think it's just a miracle that he lasted this long. Caitlyn directs Vi to her house and there they try to sneak in but fail. They're caught by Caitlyn's parents and Vi is made to wait for Caitlyn in her room while she talks to her parents. It only occurred to me right now, but we get to see both of their homes and by extension their rooms. It does somewhat validate Vi's insecurity of feeling less just because of the difference in material possessions in their rooms. Caitlyn returns and informs Vi that her parents have agreed to call a council meeting regarding the events that they've been through and the state of the Undercity. While waiting, the two have a moment as they lay down on Caitlyn's bed, and here, Vi tells Caitlyn about her childhood, her parents, and of course, Jinx. As the meeting begins, Vi and Caitlyn arrive to explain the state of the Undercity, the Hextech gemstones, Silco, and Marcus's betrayal. As the council tries to think of what to do next, Jace suggests raiding all the Shimmer factories with their forces. Appalled by this, Caitlyn seems to be disgusted by what Jace is suggesting. However, Vi suddenly agrees with Jace. She can't believe that the council is afraid of what may happen if they attack, but not wary of what may happen if they don't attack. Caitlyn is left speechless, but the disillusioned Vi walks out of the meeting. Caitlyn rushes after her, but she tells Caitlyn that they are just too different and that she should just forget about what they've been through. She walks away, leaving Caitlyn in the rain. Okay, so I just want to take this chance to point out a double standard here. I mean, when Jace suggested war, everybody got mad, even Caitlyn. It was like they were looking at a crazy man. But when Vi suggests it, everybody goes quiet, and it was like she was the voice of reason in all that chaos. I don't know, it's just an unintentionally funny moment for me in Arcane. After this, Vi makes her way to Jace's workshop, sneaking in and encouraging him to take up arms against Silco. Without too much prodding, Jace agrees and the two use Hextech tools that were repurposed to attack the factory. Vi and Jace virtually take down the entire factory by themselves, but in the heat of the moment, Jace accidentally kills a child. He stops, in shock of what he's done. At the end of the raid, Vi encourages Jace to finish what they started, but Jace just can't stomach killing the child. He ends up ending the planned raids. Vi makes a case for all the dead kids that were all Silco's fault, which she actually has a very strong case on. There's also the caveat that the kid wasn't innocent, which also Vi suggests. Now it's a question of who's right, or it's maybe a question of who's less wrong. Anyway, Jace demands for the gauntlets back, but Vi doesn't want to give them back. They square up, but after a few tense moments, Jace backs down, presumably sick of the fighting. He then walks away, warning Vi that she can't do it alone. Okay, so to be fair, both of them had really good points. It's just that at this point, I don't think there's anybody exclusively right and there's anybody exclusively wrong. I think at this point, it's not a matter of choosing what's right or what's wrong. I think for them, it's choosing what's less wrong. It's just the choices that they were given. There's always a choice, yes, but at the end of the day, you have a limited set of options. With the enforcers now back at Piltover and Vi knowing that she can't do it alone, she goes to the new last drop instead. There, she meets Sevika and the two have a final bout. Vi has her new Atlas gauntlets, while Sevika is sporting a new mechanical arm that seems to be powered by even more shimmer. They have a long stylized fight, and during the fight, we see the Atlas gauntlets adapting to the fight and even creating a force field around Vi to protect her when Sevika gets the upper hand. Seizing the opportunity, Vi knocks Sevika out. Tired and injured, Vi crawls to the bar to get a drink. As she takes a breather, she gets knocked out from behind. Okay, so why did Vi go to the last drop instead of the Shimmer Factory? Well, I really think that it's because she wanted to cut off the head of the snake. And the head of the snake is, of course, Silco, it's Sevika, and all the other Chem Barons. She didn't really know that there were already infightings with the Chem Barons, but with Silco gone, I think it would have been easier to shut down all the other factories. Vi wakes up tied up in the old cannery where the gang died. She sees Jinx and the tied up and gagged Silco in front of her as Jinx lights up the candles on the party table filled with food in front of them. Around the table are dolls made to look like Clagor and Milo, as well as 2 empty seats. One seat has the name Powder and the other has the name Jinx. Jinx then makes Vi choose where she should sit, and to make this choice, she brings out Caitlyn and gives Vi a gun. The decision would be made by Vi on whether she shoots Caitlyn or not. Instead, Vi offers to run away with Jinx and never come back. However, Jinx gives Silco a chance to talk by taking out his gag. Silco makes his case for why Jinx should stay Jinx, explaining the offer of peace made by Jace in exchange for her. He tells her that he won't accept it and that she's perfect the way she is. This makes Jinx torn, but Caitlyn manages to break free because of this. She grabs the Gatling gun and aims it at Jinx. Vi pleads for Caitlyn not to do anything to hurt Jinx, but she also does the same for Jinx. This makes Caitlyn hesitate, and Jinx uses this chance to grab the Gatling gun back from her. In the ensuing chaos, Silco grabs the gun and attempts to shoot Vi. Instinctively, Jinx shoots Silco with her Gatling gun before he can get off a shot. As he takes his last breath, Jinx runs up to him and he tells Jinx that he was never going to give her up to Piltover, and that she was perfect the way she is. With that, he passes away, leaving Jinx alone as she was. Vi watches Jinx as she slowly grabs her rocket launcher and places the Hextech gemstone inside of it. Vi and Caitlyn yell for her to stop, but she just walks away. They continue to yell, but all Jinx does is aim her rocket launcher at the council chambers and fires her Hextech enhanced missile at it. So Vi's point of view makes it pretty obvious what her priorities are, and by priorities, I mean priority because it's Powder. Powder is her priority. It's her family that's her priority. Given the choice between Hextech, the world, and Powder, she would choose Powder every time. And of course, at the last episode, we can see that this comes at a heavy price. We can examine this further if we take a look at other point of views. So if you want to do that, check out this video right here, and peace and have a good day wherever you are, whatever time it is. I hope you're doing well.